A federal district court judge in the District of Columbia has blocked new regulations requiring tobacco companies to put large graphic warnings on cigarette packages. If his ruling stands, the government will not be able to warn against the hazards of smoking in a way that's actually noticed. Congress in 2009 passed a law reporting that large graphical and text warnings about smoking's harm cover the top half of the front and back of cigarette packs starting in September 2012. The Food and Drug Administration subsequently chose 9 images, including pictures of horribly diseased lungs and teeth, that would replace existing text-only warnings on the side of packages. Now, Judge Richard Leon has issued a preliminary injunction and ruled that the regulations are probably unconstitutional infringements on the industry's free speech rights. He concluded that the government has a right to force companies to provide factual information about smoking's harm, but he found that the images were crafted to evoke an emotional response and likely amounted to impermissible government advocacy against smoking. He also suggested that requiring warning to cover a large part of the package is likely unconstitutional. Yet another federal judge in tobacco-friendly Kentucky came to virtually the opposite conclusion last year. He upheld the constitutionality of requiring bigger, bolder warnings on packages, though he did not rule on the specific images, which the FDA had not yet chosen. That decision is now before the United States Court of Appeals for the Sixth Circuit. The Obama administration should appeal Judge Leon's preliminary injunction, which would put off the labeling changes for months, if not years. A delay on the labels would lead to more needless deaths. Defense Secretary Leon E. Panetta lays out excellent proposals for reducing the defense budget, reducing nuclear weapons, the number and troops in Europe, the size of the ground forces, health care costs for military retirees, and the number of F-35 Joint Strike Fighters. But these proposals are not specific or comprehensive enough. Since we are unlikely to use nuclear weapons, our arsenal can be slashed from the current level of 5,000 to 311, as recommended by some Air Force strategists. Since we are withdrawing troops from the Middle East and are likely to need large armies there anytime soon, the size of our ground forces can be cut back by 100,000 to pre-9/11 levels. Since the Cold War ended 20 years ago, the 80,000 troops still in Europe can be reduced to 20,000. Since the military increasingly relies on permanent plans and precision-guided munitions, the number of carriers and Air Force fighters can be reduced 25%. Finally, health care premiums for working military retirees can be doubled without breaking faith. In 1995, premiums were set at $460 a year for a family and never raised until a $60 increase this year. Mr. Panetta grossly exaggerates when he says it would be disastrous if projected levels of defense spending are reduced by an additional $500 billion if the bipartisan super committee deadlocks and automatic cuts go into effect. Adding $500 billion to the $450 billion already being cut would mean total reductions of a considerable amount. Since the defense budget has grown by more than 60% over the past 15 years, it can easily absorb a 15% reduction, which would be about half the defense cuts of President Eisenhower and Nixon, and less than that of George H.W. Bush.